biohacking, performance, mastery, mindset, holistic health. This is a show about getting better every single day. I'm on a mission, guys, to help over 1 million people get healthy and lose weight. Why? Because when you lose weight and get healthy, you have higher self-esteem. You have more self-confidence. And that person goes out and crushes their goal and starts living the highest version of themselves, and then they have way more impact on the world. What's up, guys? Happy Wednesday. Let's go. Let's get after it. Today I want to talk about kidney health, liver health, gastrointestinal health, and why it's so important for weight loss. So many times I hear from so many clients, it's all about calories in, calories out, and all they want to talk about is exercise and nutrition. And that's accurate. I mean, I'm for that as well, but they don't understand some of the other complexities that are happening, right? And I think the liver is so important, which is why a lot of my clients, we do, functional medicine detoxes to open and restore drainage pathways and open up that liver, because it just gets backed up. The bile gets backed up. It becomes very sluggish. If you're not producing bile, like we're going to talk about in this podcast, then, you might have hormonal issues, right? That could be the stem, right? The liver is responsible for 70% of these metabolic processes, and we don't think about that. We think just so myopic. We're only looking at the type of diet, the type of foods, and these are all important things, but I think we're missing some of the other pieces, which is why so many of my clients do well with these functional medicine detoxes. So let's get into it. Let's talk about a little about gastrointestinal health and kidney health, and the liver, the kidneys, right? They're working to block harmful substances from entering and staying in our systems, right? They're pushing it out of the body. And so it's such a beautiful thing, right? But they're also really susceptible to insulin resistance. And 63% of people with insulin resistance, so they have type 2 diabetes, they experience a lot of gastrointestinal issues. And this is leading to things like kidney failure. I just had a client call me the other day, saying that she's in the hospital with gallstones, most likely. This happens a lot. And I see this actually with a lot of clients that are coming to me. They have no gallbladder. So again, let's think about this. Like, what is going on here from this organ? What is going on down at the cellular level? Again, we just think about it in terms of, it's just calories in, calories out, right? Work out more, eat less. Now, let's talk about acid reflux, right? Stomach acid, we know it's very acidic, and that's good for the stomach, so it can break down our foods, and our foods don't putrefy. When they sit in the stomach and they're putrefying, they ferment. That's when we get things like SIBO, a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and these things start to ferment and cause downstream inflammation. You have bloating, you have all kinds of issues, right? And so we want that stomach acid to be high, right? People are always talking about alkalinity, and there's some truth to that, but we want that stomach acid to be high so that we can actually break down the foods and get nutrients out of it. But your esophagus, on the other hand, can't stand stomach acid, right? Stomach acid, that's why you feel the burn. Well, when your esophageal sphincter is not closing properly from the stomach and the esophagus, that's when you get this backup of the acid. And if you get enough of it, right, the esophagus is not made to be in that highly acidic environment. And when you get enough of it, that's when we start to see that tearing or that thickening, that callousing of the esophageal lining, which is like Barrett syndrome, right? 40% of Americans actually experience frequent heartburn, and over half of Americans are insulin resistant. You guys starting to notice a trend here, right? Metabolic syndrome and acid reflux, they go hand in hand, basically. So let's talk about visceral obesity, right? If you have more fat in this region, right, in that visceral region, you are going to have, there is the thought that you're going to have more stomach pressure, and that is going to make it, the esophageal sphincter is going to relax more, which is going to cause that opening that we're talking about. But physicians in Taiwan, they wanted to check this out. They wanted to see, was there any correlation between insulin resistance and esophageal, that esophageal sphincter opening? They wanted to see, well, do people have to be obese? So what they did is they made people insulin resistant without being obese, and they saw a 15% increase in acid reflux. Okay. So again, all these organs and all these things are tied in. There's a metabolic function there. Let's talk about gastroparesis, right? That's another it's a complication that's pretty common with people in the intestines and usually the stomach. It's paralyzed, it's unable to move food onward, right? So the lingering food gets stuck and it forms these blockages, right? Now, diabetes, we know When you're insulin resistant, you have diabetes. Diabetes can actually damage the nerves. And then we call that neuropathy, right? That's where people have these tingling in like their feet and their hands. And in this instant, we're talking about like the nerves that actually controls the stomach, right? The vagus nerve. And if this becomes damaged, it's going to be less likely to induce stomach contractions and peristalsis, which is that nice moving of the gut. And you can actually massage it. If you guys are watching on video, you can actually massage your stomach in this round motion. I actually learned that that kind of that rotation when I went to a school learning when I first had my first kid, and we were talking about how, because if they're they're young babies and stuff, and so there was if they get constipated or anything like that, if you want to move their bowels, you can simply do this massage in the circular motion, right? Now let's talk about insulin in the liver. I talked about insulin resistance in the liver right in the beginning, right? The liver is essential, guys. It's essential for removing toxins from the blood and clearing out blood cells, storing vitamins, nutrient metabolism, right? I remember I went to a supplement store way back in the day when I was in my early 20s, and I remember meeting a woman behind, and she was selling me supplements, so she wanted me to buy stuff. But she had told me, in Persian cultures, or like specifically in Iran, I guess, a common term of endearment is this phrase where you refer to it's cigar tala. And I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it refers to golden liver. They really get this concept. And so when there's a healthy liver, a healthy liver senses it is able to provide better insulin sensitivity in the blood, right? So it's not always going to use that insulin right away. It's going to convert some of it into glycogen, which is where we store glucose in the body, and then we later use it when we're feeling depleted, right? And then some of it gets stored as fat. So this is good because it lowers the amount of glucose that's floating around the blood, and that's going to help lower insulin. Now, once we get to the point of type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance, blood glucose increases as well as fats, and then this is going to alter your LDL cholesterol size. And that's when you go to the doctors and you're like, hey, I got this high cholesterol. What's this all about? And then the doctors are putting you on statins, which have been proven not to work. That was a big study that just came out. They absolutely do nothing. By the way, I don't want to say they don't do nothing, but what it showed really is that unless you're like in a very small percentage of people, that might be a good thing to do. But for the most people, they don't need it. And it actually causes worse symptoms, right? So in insulin resistance, again, the signals gets broken, right? We keep hearing this over and over again. Instead, the liver, it begins to break down glycogen to be released as glucose into the blood. And this starts to increase glucose levels, driving up insulin because the signal is broken. That's the insulin resistance. And then these excess insulin signal the liver to basically create excess fat. And then you have things like hyperlipidemia, where, you have too much cholesterol, basically. And that's too much cholesterol or lipids in the blood. And there's just too much fat. It's all reversible, though. At least in my world, it is. I don't know about the modern MD. And then let's talk about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I just had a client I was talking with the other day about this, and this is a problem for many people. And so what happens? Instead of secreting fat into the blood, the liver can store it, right? So if the liver stores too much fat, it's going to start to lose that functionality. And again, it's like when we can't manage insulin correctly, and we have metabolic disease, metabolic syndrome, all these issues come. But you can see why the liver is so important, why the kidneys are so important, why the gallbladder is so important. And we don't think about these when we think about metabolic health. They actually say that 1 in 3 people have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. That's crazy. And you know what the biggest predictor of all of this is? Insulin resistance, being able to manage glucose correctly, right? So let's talk really quickly. Insulin in the gallbladder. So the gallbladder and the liver, right? They work together. It's like the liver's sidekick, and it helps. Everyone knows the gallbladder has to do with storage of fat. It stores bile, and that's a fluid that's created by the liver. And so these substances, they work together to emulsify fat, right? And and then these fats can be absorbed into the body, right? So essentially it's a reservoir for bile, right? And if it becomes sluggish, I was on a webinar the other day, we were talking about this, that again, if the gallbladder becomes sluggish and not excreting properly, if there's not enough movement, you get low stomach acid. If you get low stomach acid, you get that putrefaction of food. If you get the putrefaction of food, you get to have that backup. So it's all connected, guys, right? So, really quickly, the liver is going to, and also one of the most common disorders, I was mentioning gallbladder stones with one of my clients, right? Well, one of the issues is when it becomes sluggish and it can't digest fat, you are going to see things like stones, right? Because that watery mixture of the bile just becomes too thick. And so what we see is that the liver actually may produce too much cholesterol, or the gallbladder may not be contracting enough, like I said, enough to push that bile out into the intestines. And then you get, again, insulin resistance affects both of these functions. You get excess cholesterol, a gallstone can form, the bile becomes too enriched with either this bilirubin or cholesterol. The liver, it's responsible for removing all these old blood cells, right, from the body. And so it's super, super important. Then you get things like insulin is also responsible for slowing gallbladder motility, right? So the more insulin resistant a person is, the less gallbladder contraction. And then they actually showed that if you do a 4-hour infusion of insulin, it can create a state of hyperinsulinemia, which reduces gallbladder function. So again, why are all these people having gallbladder issues? I think some of it is fungal related, but another big issue could be insulin resistance. And then kidney health and kidney stones. Let's talk briefly about this. We know that the kidney helps remove toxins and metabolites from the blood, and it gets all eliminated through the urine, right? The kidney is a filter. It helps regulate our blood volume, bone health, pH balance, and so much more. So someone that has high insulin amount, what happens is it creates more calcium. Too much calcium can cause lots of problems. We know when we think about calcium in the heart, right? Calcium forms also kidney stones. And so the more calcium that rises in the blood, the kidney has to filter out this calcium. And eventually you reach this point where you might have these hard stones, these kidney stones, right? Insulin resistance, again, a huge predictor of that. And actually responsible for 50% of insulin resistance can cause kidney failure. So here's the bottom line, guys. I want to make this one a short episode, but our digestive and urinary tracts, okay, they're fundamental for moving nutrients through our body and eliminating waste, right? And digesting all these nutrients, making sure that we're digesting them. So when insulin resistance starts to change this function or alter it, the digestive and the urinary process also become compromised. And this is what's going to alter and mess with people's digestions, the way they can absorb foods, the way they can absorb nutrients, their energy levels, their metabolic health, cholesterol levels when they go. So this is why it's so important. It's so, so important to get your metabolic health in check. But then also, I think is a big reason I get asked a lot. And I mean, I'm hoping this podcast will kind of help, explain why I'm such a big believer in doing detoxes and why I think about drainage is so crucial for all my clients and opening up those liver, gallbladder, and getting those things moving, because it's so much more than just calories in, calories out. That's all I got today, guys. I hope this was powerful for you. Happy Weight Loss Wednesday. Stay tuned. We got some more amazing stuff coming down the pipeline this week. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me, info@joelevancoaching.com. I have a cheat sheet on the weight loss diet if you guys want that, and also the mindset that you need to have a flourishing life, but also can stay consistent with your diet and whatever you're trying to create and do in life. I am out. Have an amazing hump day and the rest of your week. God bless.